In 1983, the cargo ship Northstar Meridian transmitted a routine position update, and then added a single line that confused everyone who heard it. "We have visual on a lighthouse." There was no land within range, no installations, no recorded structures for over 400 miles. Still, the crew described it the same way: tall, silent, fixed directly ahead of them. The beam wasn't sweeping the horizon, it was aimed, steady and deliberate, at their ship. When the navigation officer recalculated their route, the numbers didn't match what they were seeing. According to their chart on board, there was nothing in front of them. But the lighthouse didn't disappear. It grew clearer, closer. Turner requested confirmation from nearby vessels. No one else could see it. Only the Northstar Meridian. Then a second transmission followed, short and controlled. The light just adjusted. No change in course had been made, no shift in weather, but the beam had moved, correcting itself, realigning, staying fixed on them, as if it was tracking something specific. Not the ship, but someone on it. Before we go further, stay with me, like and subscribe now, because what you're about to hear wasn't meant to be discovered. The Northstar Meridian had been in service for nearly 2 decades. Built for endurance, not elegance. It was the kind of ship that didn't attract attention. Steel worn smooth by years of salt and weather, systems upgraded just enough to stay compliant, and a crew that trusted it because it had never given them a reason not to. On the night of April 17th, 1983, everything on board was operating exactly as expected. The sea was calm, not flat, but steady enough that the ship moved with a slow, predictable rhythm. Light rain drifted across the deck, tapping softly against metal surfaces, collecting along the railings before slipping back into the ocean. Visibility was limited, but manageable. Inside the bridge, Captain Elias Turner stood near the forward windows, hands resting loosely behind his back. He had spent most of his life at sea, and nights like this didn't concern him. Routine crossings, routine conditions, nothing unusual. Behind him, Philip Miles monitored the radio console. He was younger, attentive, the kind of operator who double-checked frequencies even when everything sounded clear. His headset rested slightly off one ear, listening to overlapping channels while logging standard transmissions from distant vessels. Nothing out of place. Navigation systems showed a clean route. Coordinates aligned perfectly with their projected course. No nearby land masses, no flagged hazards, no other ships within immediate proximity. Everything was normal. And yet, Philip kept glancing up. Not at the instruments, at the window. The lighthouse was still there. Closer now. Not dramatically, not enough to trigger alarm, but enough that he noticed it without trying. A structure that, by all calculations, should have remained distant, was slowly becoming more defined, its outline sharper, its light brighter. Philip adjusted the gain on his console, eyes narrowing slightly. "Captain." Turner didn't turn immediately. "Yes?" Philip hesitated for a moment, then spoke carefully. "That light. It should still be farther out, right?" Turner followed his line of sight. The beam held steady in the distance, unchanging, fixed in place like a reference point carved into the horizon. A lighthouse meant safety, a guide, a marker that told sailors where not to go. Turner studied it briefly, then glanced at the navigation display beside him. The coordinates hadn't shifted. Their speed was constant. There was no reason for the structure to appear any closer than it had minutes ago. And yet, it did. Turner kept his eyes on the horizon a moment longer. Then he stepped toward the navigation console. "Range." Philip checked the display again, fingers moving with practiced precision. "Still the same, Captain. No change." Turner nodded once. Calm, controlled. "Then it hasn't moved." Philip didn't respond immediately, because the light said otherwise. Out beyond the rain, the beam shifted. Not in a smooth rotation, not in any recognizable cycle. It flashed, then held, then flashed again. Uneven, like something deciding when to continue. Philip leaned forward slightly, watching it now without looking away. "That's not a standard sweep," he said quietly. Turner glanced up again. This time, He didn't look away as quickly. The lighthouse beam cut through the mist, but there was no rhythm to it, no timing a sailor could predict. It lingered too long in one direction, then snapped away without completing a full arc. A pause followed, longer than it should have been, long enough to feel wrong. Then it returned, brighter, more focused. Philip adjusted a dial, bringing up additional signal readings. "Navigation beacon should be syncing with our system," he muttered, "but I'm not getting anything consistent." Turner stepped closer. "What about the coordinates it transmitted earlier?" Philip pulled them up again, overlaying them onto their current route. A small frown formed. "They don't line up." "How far off?" Philip hesitated. "Far enough that, if we followed them, we wouldn't reach that lighthouse." Turner looked back toward the window. The structure was still there, clear, unmistakable. "Then it's not broadcasting its own position," Turner said. Philip shook his head slowly. "No, it's broadcasting somewhere else." The ship continued forward, steady against the low rise and fall of the ocean. But the air inside the bridge had shifted, subtle, tight, like something was just slightly out of place, and no one could agree on what it was. Another flash from the lighthouse, this one shorter, sharper, then darkness. For a moment it didn't come back. Philip stared, waiting, counting without meaning to. 1, 2, 3, 4. The beam returned suddenly, cutting through the fog with more intensity than before. Philip exhaled under his breath. "That pause is getting longer." Turner didn't answer, because now he was watching it the same way, carefully, measuring it. The wind outside picked up slightly, brushing harder against the hull. Rain shifted direction, streaking across the glass at a sharper angle, and somewhere in the distance, a foghorn sounded, low, drawn out, but wrong. The tone wavered like it was passing through something before reaching them, not clean, not stable. It faded in and out before disappearing entirely. Philip looked up. "Did you hear that?" Turner gave a small nod. "Range should be too far for that," Philip added. No response. Turner's attention stayed fixed ahead. Another flash, another pause. Then, a voice broke the silence behind them. One of the deck crew, Harris, stood near the doorway, still slightly wet from the rain outside. He hadn't been there long enough for anyone to notice when he arrived, but he'd been watching. "You're both seeing it, right?" he asked. Turner turned slightly. "Seeing what?" Harris stepped closer, eyes locked on the horizon. The light," Philip answered before Turner could. "Yes." Harris shook his head slowly. "No, not just that," he pointed. "It's shifted." Turner's expression hardened slightly. "It's rotating." Harris shook his head again, more firmly this time. "No, Captain, not rotating." A brief silence filled the bridge. Harris lowered his hand. "It moved." Turner didn't respond to Harris immediately. He just watched him, measured the way he said it, then turned back toward the window. The lighthouse stood where it had been moments ago, except it didn't feel the same. Not in distance, not in presence. "Back to your post," Turner said calmly. Harris hesitated, then nodded once and stepped away from the doorway, though his eyes lingered a second too long before he disappeared down the corridor. Philip exhaled slowly. He sounded sure. Turner's voice stayed even. "People see what they expect to see when visibility drops." Philip didn't argue, but his attention had already shifted back to the console. "I'm going to try hailing it," he said. Turner gave a small nod. "This is cargo vessel Northstar Meridian requesting identification. Lighthouse at bearing 085. Respond." The static returned immediately, but it wasn't empty. It pressed back, dense, layered. Philip leaned in, eyes narrowing as he filtered through the noise. "There's something under it again." Turner stepped closer, watching him now instead of the horizon. "Can you isolate it?" "I'm trying." Philip adjusted the gain, cutting out higher frequencies, then lower ones, peeling away the interference piece by piece. For a second, it cleared, and the sound came through, not loud, not clean, but unmistakable. "Don't!" Philip froze. Turner's voice dropped. "Don't what?" The signal twisted again, stretching unnaturally before snapping back into static. Philip spoke into the mic, sharper now. "Repeat that transmission." Nothing. Just the low, empty hiss. Then, "Turn." The word came thinner this time, almost buried. Philip's hand hovered over the controls. "That's not a beacon," he said quietly. Turner didn't respond, because he was looking at the logbook again, flipping back further now. Earlier entries, previous days, routes across open water, normal, consistent. Then he stopped. Another line. 2 nights ago, different handwriting, second officer's entry. "Bearing 085, clear path ahead. No fixed light sources detected." Turner's fingers rested on the page. He didn't say anything right away. Philip noticed. "Ike, what is it now?" Turner turned the log slightly toward him. Philip leaned in, read it once, then again. "That doesn't make sense." Turner closed the book slowly. "It's not just tonight." Philip looked back toward the window. The lighthouse stood clearer now than ever before. Too clear. Details that should have been lost to distance were visible. The dark vertical lines of its structure, the outline of its upper housing. Even the light itself. It wasn't diffused by fog anymore. It was sharp, focused, precise. Philip swallowed slightly. "We should be almost on top of it at this point." Turner nodded once. "We should." Philip checked the navigation again, faster this time. Coordinates steady, speed unchanged. Distance to nearest landmass still impossible. He let out a slow breath. We haven't closed that kind of distance." Turner's voice stayed level. "I know." A long creak ran through the ship again, louder this time. From above. The footsteps returned, more defined now, crossing directly over the bridge. Philip looked up. "That's not the wind." Turner moved toward the intercom. "Deck, report status." Silence. No response. He tried again. "Deck, respond." Nothing. Just the faint hum of an open line. The footsteps stopped, directly overhead. Philip didn't move, didn't speak. Then, one step, slow, heavy, right above them. Philip's voice dropped. "Captain." Turner didn't look up. His attention had shifted again, drawn back to the horizon. The lighthouse beam changed. Not a flash, not a pause. It narrowed, tightened, until it became a single, focused line of light, pointed directly at the bridge windows. Philip followed his gaze, and felt it immediately, the difference. "That's not right." Turner stepped closer to the glass. For the first time since it appeared, there was no question left about distance. The lighthouse was closer, not by degrees, not gradually. It had advanced, silently, without the ship moving an inch toward it. Philip's voice came quieter now. "If we haven't moved," Turner finished it under his breath, "then something else has." The radio crackled suddenly. Both men turned. No one had touched it. The speaker came alive on its own. Static flooded through, then cut sharply, and for a brief second, a voice came through. Clearer than before, not distorted, not stretched, just low, controlled. "You're already here." The line went dead. Philip stared at the console, unmoving. Turner didn't speak. And because outside, the lighthouse no longer looked distant. It looked like it was waiting. Turner didn't move. His eyes remained fixed on the lighthouse, on the way its beam held steady against the glass, no longer behaving like something at a distance. Behind him, Philip finally broke the silence. "That transmission," Turner answered without looking away. "Log it." Philip hesitated. "What do I write?" Turner's voice stayed level. "Exactly what you heard." Philip turned back to the console, but his hands moved slower now, because the moment he looked away, something felt different. The bridge, the air, subtle, but wrong. Before he could process it, the door behind them swung open. Harris stepped in again, faster this time, breathing slightly heavier. "You need to hear this." Turner turned. What is it?" Harris pointed back toward the corridor. "Crews reporting visual conflict." Turner's expression hardened. "Explain." Harris swallowed once. "Jenkins says the lighthouse is still far out, same position as before." Philip frowned. That's not possible. Harris shook his head. Martinez just came up from lower deck. He says it's right next to us, close enough to see the base. A quiet silence filled the room. Turner looked between them. Same time? Harris nodded. Same time. Philip let out a slow breath. That means they're not seeing the same thing. Turner turned back toward the window. The lighthouse stood there, closer than ever, unmistakable. So which one was wrong? Or worse, which one was right? The radio crackled again. All three men turned instantly. Philip didn't touch anything this time. Now the signal forced its way through on its own. Not static, not interference. A structured transmission, repeating, over and over. Mayday! Mayday! Philip rushed to the console, adjusting levels. I didn't initiate this. Turner stepped in. Trace it. Philip's fingers moved quickly, locking onto the frequency. The signal continued. Requesting assistance, position, unknown. Then it looped. Exactly the same. No variation. Philip's face tightened. It's repeating. Perfectly. Turner's voice lowered. Timestamp? Philip checked the embedded signal data, then froze. What is it? Turner asked. Philip didn't answer immediately, because the number didn't make sense. It says... He started slowly. 1983. Turner's gaze sharpened. That's this year. Philip nodded, but his expression didn't change. No, Captain. He turned the screen slightly. The timestamp is from April 12th. A pause. Then Turner spoke. Quieter now. That's 5 days ago. Philip nodded again. But the signal strength is live. The transmission continued to loop, unchanged, unbroken, as if it had never stopped broadcasting. Rain began to hit the ship harder now. Not a steady drift anymore, but sharp, relentless. It struck the windows in uneven bursts, streaking visibility, distorting the view outside. The lighthouse beam cut through it, unaffected, still clear, still precise. Philip adjusted the audio again, isolating the distress call. There's something under it, he said. Turner stepped closer. What kind of something? Philip increased the gain slightly. The repeated message stayed the same. But beneath it, there was another layer, lower, barely audible. Don't follow. Philip's throat tightened. That's not part of the loop. Turner didn't respond. And because movement caught his attention, not outside, inside. A crew member appeared at the far end of the hallway beyond the bridge. Martinez. He stopped at the doorway, didn't step in, just stood there, eyes wide. Turner noticed immediately. What is it? Martinez didn't answer right away. His breathing was uneven, like he had rushed up the stairs. Or run. I need you to listen. Turner took a step toward him. Report. Martinez swallowed. I was below deck, starboard corridor. Philip turned slightly, listening now. Martinez's voice dropped. I saw the light. Philip frowned. From below deck? Martinez nodded slowly. Turner's tone sharpened. That's not possible. Martinez shook his head, more urgently now. I know where I was. Silence. Then he said it. Quiet, certain. It wasn't outside. Philip felt a cold tension settle in his chest. Turner didn't speak. Martinez's eyes shifted slightly, not to the window, not to the instruments, but to the hallway behind them. The light, he said slowly, was inside the hallway. Turner didn't question Martinez again. He just studied him for a moment, long enough to decide whether what he was hearing came from panic or certainty. It wasn't panic. Stay here, Turner said. Martinez didn't move from the doorway. Philip watched as the captain turned away from the window for the first time in minutes and moved toward the chart table. Paper charts, not just instruments. Turner pulled one free and spread it flat, anchoring the corners with steady hands. His eyes scanned the grid lines, the depth markings, on the known routes carved into ink long before their systems existed. Bearing 085, he murmured. Philip stepped closer, glancing between the chart and the window. There's nothing there, Philip said. Turner didn't respond. He checked again. Different scale, wider range, nothing. No structure, no hazard marking, No recorded installation, just open ocean. Turner leaned back slightly. Not even a decommissioned tower, he said quietly. Philip let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Then what are we looking at? Turner didn't answer, because that question didn't belong to navigation anymore. Behind them, the radio continued its loop. Mayday, Mayday. Unchanging, unbroken, like it had always been there. Philip reached over and lowered the volume slightly, but it didn't make it easier to ignore. If anything, it made the silence around it feel heavier. Turner moved again, this time toward a storage compartment built into the side of the bridge. He opened it without hesitation. Inside, old records. Paper logs sealed in plastic covers, previous routes, archived notes from earlier voyages. Philip frowned slightly. We're going back that far? Turner pulled one free. Sometimes the instruments don't tell you what you need. He flipped it open, scanning entries quickly. Dates, coordinates, routine notes, nothing unusual. Until he stopped. His hand rested on the page, still. Philip noticed immediately. What is it? Turner didn't look up. Another vessel. Philip stepped closer. What about it? Turner turned the log slightly so Philip could see. The handwriting was different, older. The entry was short, but precise. Unidentified light source observed at distance. Not marked on chart, beam fixed, no rotation. Philip's chest tightened. That's... Turner nodded once. Same description. Philip scanned further down the page. There's more. Turner let him read. Attempted course correction. Light maintained position ahead. Signal interference reported. Philip's voice slowed. Crew experiencing visual inconsistencies. Silence settled between them. Philip turned the page. There were no more entries. That's it? He asked. Turner's expression didn't change. That's where it ends. Philip looked up. What happened to the ship? Turner closed the log slowly. It never reached port. The words landed heavier than anything that had come before. Philip glanced back at the window, at the lighthouse. Closer now than it had been minutes ago. Ock, you're saying... Turner finished it for him. They saw the same thing. A deep sound rolled across the water. Both men froze. Not the faint, distant tone from earlier. This was louder, heavier. A foghorn, but wrong in a different way now. It didn't just echo. It pressed, like the sound carried weight with it. Philip instinctively reached for the console. That's too close. Turner didn't respond, because the sound came again. Longer this time, lower. It didn't fade naturally. It stretched, like it was being pulled before it finally cut off. Philip swallowed. That's not coming from miles away. Turner turned slowly toward the window again. The lighthouse stood there, massive now, dominating the horizon. Details clearer than ever. The base, the structure, the light housing at the top, all visible, too visible. Philip's voice dropped. We shouldn't be this close. Turner's answer came just as quiet. We didn't move. The foghorn sounded again. This time, there was something else in it. Not a second sound, not a voice, but a shift, a distortion that felt almost deliberate. Philip leaned closer to the glass without realizing it. Captain, Turner didn't take his eyes off it. I know. Philip's thoughts raced, trying to connect everything. The log, the missing ship, the signal, the movement. What if? He started, then stopped. Turner glanced at him. Say it. Philip hesitated, but only for a second. What if this isn't new? Turner said nothing. Philip continued, quieter now. What if it's the same event, happening again? Turner's gaze returned to the lighthouse. The beam held steady, unchanging, locked onto them. Philip's voice dropped even further. That distress signal. It's repeating. Turner nodded once. Yes. Philip swallowed. The ship in that log, they reported the same light. Another pause. Then he said it. What if they didn't leave? Turner didn't answer, because the question didn't need one. The foghorn sounded again, closer than before. And this time, it didn't feel like a warning. It felt like recognition. Philip replayed the signal again. Not the loop, not the surface noise, the layer beneath it, the part that wasn't meant to be heard. He isolated it completely this time, cutting away everything except the original transmission buried underneath. The speakers went quiet for a second. Then, "This is cargo vessel Ardent Gale." Clear. Not distorted, not broken. Like it had just been recorded. Turner's head turned slowly. "That's not possible." Philip didn't respond. He was already analyzing the waveform. "The background noise," he said, focused. "It's identical every time, down to the smallest variation." Turner stepped closer. "What does that mean?" Philip hesitated, then answered. "It means this isn't interference." A pause. "It's being replayed." The weight of that sat heavy between them. Behind the voice, faint sounds bled through. Wind, metal strain, distant movement. Philip increased the gain slightly. "Light holding position. We've adjusted course twice." The voice cut briefly, then returned. "It's still ahead of us." Turner closed his eyes for a second. Not out of fear, out of recognition. Philip kept listening. "Navigation not aligning. Requesting updated." Static swallowed the rest. Philip rewound it. Played another section. Different fragment. "Media crew reporting visual discrepancies." Turner's jaw tightened. Philip didn't stop. He pulled another piece forward. "Some see it far, others say it's right beside us." The room went still. No one spoke. Because it wasn't just similar anymore. It was identical. Every detail, every report. Philip leaned back slightly, breathing slower now. "This isn't just a distress call." Turner finished it quietly. "It's a record." Philip nodded. "A full event, captured and replayed." The foghorn sounded again, louder than ever. Not distant, not echoing. It felt like it came from just beyond the hull. Philip flinched slightly, then turned back to the console. "There's one more layer," he said. Turner looked at him. "What kind of layer?" Philip's eyes stayed on the screen and pulled the data feed onto the main display. A string of numbers appeared. Latitude, longitude. Turner stepped closer. "Read them." Philip did, slowly, precisely, each number landing heavier than the last. Turner's eyes shifted immediately to their current navigation display. Side by side, two sets of coordinates, one from the past, one from now. Philip compared them once, then again, just to be sure. His voice dropped. "That's not possible." Turner didn't speak, because he was already seeing it. Philip turned slightly toward him, face pale. "The coordinates. Bearing 085, he swallowed. They match ours." Silence. Not the quiet of calm water, but the kind that settles when something irreversible has just been understood. The radio, now stripped of the loop, let out one final fragment. Faint. Almost gone. "We didn't move." Turner slowly turned back toward the window. The lighthouse stood directly ahead now. I'd no distance left to question, no uncertainty left to measure. Philip's voice barely held. "Captain," Turner answered without looking away. "I know." Philip shook his head slowly. "No, you don't understand." Turner didn't respond. Philip's eyes stayed locked on the coordinates, on the numbers that shouldn't be possible. They weren't just near this thing. A pause. They were exactly where we are. Outside. The lighthouse beam narrowed once more, and held. Turner didn't speak. Not after that last realization. Not after the coordinates. Because outside, the lighthouse was no longer something in the distance. It was there, close enough that the structure no longer blurred into the fog. The edges were sharp now, defined. The tower rising straight out of the water with no visible foundation, no rocks, no land, just a vertical presence where nothing should exist. Philip's voice came low. "We're too close." Turner didn't answer. Because the light changed again. For the first time since they'd seen it, it began to move in a full sweep, slow, controlled. But not like a normal lighthouse. It didn't rotate evenly. It passed over the ship, then returned, then passed again, not scanning the ocean, tracking. Philip felt it immediately. That's not navigation. he said quietly. The beam slid across the bridge windows, and for a brief second, everything inside was illuminated, clear, or sharp. Then it moved on, only to return again, slower this time, more deliberate, like it was studying. Behind them, the door to the bridge opened again. Another crew member, Jenkins, stepped in quickly. "Captain?" Turner turned. "What is it?" Jenkins looked unsettled. "Rogers was on deck. He hasn't checked in." Turner's expression didn't change. "How long?" 10 minutes. Philip frowned. "That's not like him." Jenkins shook his head. "I went up to check. He's not there." Turner's voice stayed level. "Search the immediate area." Jenkins hesitated. "I already did." Silence. Turner stepped closer. "Then expand the search." Jenkins didn't move. "There's nowhere else to go, Captain." The words lingered longer than they should have. Philip turned back toward the window instinctively. The lighthouse beam swept across again. Slower now, so lingering slightly longer each time it passed over the ship. Jenkins spoke again, quieter. "There's something else." Turner looked at him. "What?" Jenkins swallowed. "I heard movement near the railing." Philip glanced back. "What kind of movement?" Jenkins hesitated. "Like someone walking." A pause. "Barefoot." The word settled heavily in the room. Turner didn't respond immediately, but Philip did. "That doesn't make sense." Jenkins nodded. "I know." Before anyone could say anything else, a loud metallic bang echoed from deep within the ship. All three men froze. The sound came again. From below. Engine room. Philip turned sharply. "That's not normal operation." Turner moved toward the door. "Stay on the radio." Philip nodded. Turner and Jenkins stepped out into the corridor. The moment the door closed, the bridge felt different, quieter, but not empty. Philip sat still for a second, listening. The radio hummed faintly. The rain hit harder now, almost aggressive against the windows. Then, a sound behind him, soft, wet, a single step. Philip's head turned slowly. The hallway beyond the bridge was empty, but the floor, faint marks, dark, trailing just inside the doorway like water, tracked in from outside. Another step, closer this time. Philip stood slowly. "Hello?" No response, just silence. Then, drip, drip. The sound of water hitting the metal floor. Philip didn't move forward, didn't look away, because the marks on the floor, they weren't leading in. They were forming, as if something invisible was standing there. The lighthouse beam swept across the windows again, and for a brief second, the entire bridge lit up. But Philip turned instinctively toward the glass, and that's when he saw it. Not the lighthouse itself, but the water below, directly beneath the ship, reflecting the light, but not correctly. The reflection wasn't beneath the horizon. It wasn't distant. It was close, too close. Philip stepped toward the window slowly, heart steady but tight. The beam passed again, and the reflection sharpened. The lighthouse was directly below them. Philip's voice barely formed. "Captain!" The radio crackled suddenly, loud enough to make him flinch. He turned back instinctively. "Engine room, respond!" It was Turner's voice, but strained. Philip grabbed the mic. "Captain, I read you. What's happening?" Static. Then, "Jenkins is gone." Philip's grip tightened. "What do you mean, gone?" The reply came broken. "See, he was right behind me, then he wasn't." Philip's eyes shifted slowly back toward the window, toward the water, toward the reflection that shouldn't exist. The lighthouse stood above them, and below them, at the same time. The beam swept again, and this time, it didn't pass over the ship. It stopped, locked directly onto the bridge, and held. Turner's voice didn't return immediately. The radio fell back into a low, empty hum. Philip stood frozen for a second longer, staring at the reflection beneath the ship, at the impossible alignment of something that should only exist above the water. Then the bridge lurched, not violently, just enough, a slow shift. Philip grabbed the edge of the console. That wasn't the sea. It was the ship. He turned instantly to the navigation display. Course deviation, small, but real. Captain," he said into the radio, trying to keep his voice steady, "we're drifting." Static. Then Turner again. That's not possible. Engines are steady. Philip checked. Engine output, normal. Speed, unchanged. Rudder, centered. No input. No failure. Nothing that explained movement. Everything's reading stable, Philip said, eyes moving quickly across each system. But we're off course. Another pause on the line. Then Turner. Lower now. Hold position. Philip stared at the display. We're not holding anything. The compass beside him made a faint clicking sound. Philip's attention snapped to it. The needle trembled, then moved. Slowly, not swinging wildly, not spinning out of control, just drifting. 1 degree, then another. Philip leaned closer. That's not interference. The needle kept turning, deliberate, like something was guiding it, rather than disrupting it. Philip reached out and steadied the casing instinctively. The needle didn't stop. It continued moving beneath his hand. He pulled back slightly, watching, measuring. It wasn't random. It was aligning with something. Outside, the lighthouse beam shifted again, sweeping across the ship, then returning, then holding. Philip's voice dropped. It's adjusting us. The radio crackled. Turner's voice came through, tighter now. Repeat that, Philip swallowed. The compass. It's not failing. It's changing direction. Silence. Then Turner. Toward what? Philip didn't answer immediately, because he already knew. He turned slowly toward the window. The lighthouse filled nearly everything now. No horizon left. No separation between sea and structure. Just the tower and the light, watching. Philip spoke quietly. Toward it. Footsteps echoed suddenly from the corridor again. Fast this time. Uneven. Philip turned sharply. Martinez stumbled into the bridge, breathing hard, eyes wide. They're arguing downstairs, Philip frowned. Who? All of them, Martinez said quickly. They're saying different things, different positions, different readings. No one agrees on where we are. Philip closed his eyes briefly. They're not seeing the same data. Martinez looked back at him. What? Philip opened his eyes again. They're each seeing something different. Another shift of the ship. Another quiet correction. Martinez grabbed the edge of the console. This thing is moving us and they're tearing each other apart down there. The radio snapped on again, cutting him off. A voice filled the bridge. Martinez froze. Philip didn't move. Because it wasn't unfamiliar. It was Martinez. They're blaming each other. The exact words he had just said. Before he said them. Martinez's face drained. I didn't, the radio continued. Someone changed the readings. Same tone, same breath, same pacing. Martinez stepped back. That's my voice. Philip nodded slowly. I know. The transmission kept going. They're not seeing the same data. Philip's own words now. Layered over Martinez's. Both voices overlapping slightly. Out of sync. Like two versions of the same moment trying to exist at once. The radio cut off abruptly. Silence slammed back into the room. Martinez shook his head. That's not a replay. Philip's voice stayed low. No. Martinez looked at him. Then what is it? Philip didn't answer right away. Then he turned slowly toward the window again. The lighthouse stood impossibly close now, filling everything. The beam no longer sweeping widely, but narrowing, focusing, returning to the same point, over and over again. Philip spoke quietly. It's ahead of us. Martinez frowned. What is? Philip's eyes stayed locked on the light. The moment. A pause. Then he explained. We're not hearing recordings. Martinez didn't interrupt. Philip continued. We're hearing what hasn't happened yet. Martinez's breathing slowed, uncertain. You're saying it's predicting? Philip shook his head slightly. No. Another sweep of the light. Another shift of the compass. Closer. More exact. Philip swallowed. It's repeating. Martinez stared at him. But we're still here. Philip didn't look away from the window. Are we? The ship gave another slow, deliberate turn. Not forced, not resisted, accepted. like it had already made the decision. The radio clicked on again. This time, Turner's voice, clear, steady. "We've already reached it." Philip's chest tightened. Martinez whispered, "That hasn't happened." Philip didn't answer, because outside, the lighthouse beam stopped moving completely, locked in place, waiting, as if everything that was about to happen already had. The ship stopped resisting. That was the first thing Philip noticed. No more subtle corrections, no more drifting adjustments. The Northstar Meridian was no longer being guided. It had aligned perfectly. The compass needle held steady, locked into a direction that no longer needed correction. Outside, the lighthouse stood directly ahead, no distance left between them. Philip's voice came out low. "Awesome, we're here." Martinez didn't respond, because the moment the words left Philip's mouth, the light changed. It didn't sweep, it didn't adjust. It expanded, filling the entire forward view of the bridge in a solid, unbroken beam. And then, the ship moved. Not forward, not through the water, but into it. There was no impact, no collision, no sound of steel meeting structure. The lighthouse didn't get closer. The world around it shifted, and suddenly, it wasn't outside anymore. Philip stumbled slightly as the bridge darkened. The rain was gone. The ocean, gone. Silence replaced everything. Heavy, thick. Martinez grabbed onto the console. "What just—" He stopped, because the windows weren't showing open water anymore. They were showing walls, close, too close, dark, in corroded metal stretching upward beyond what the ship's height should allow. Philip turned slowly. "We're inside." Martinez shook his head immediately. "That's not possible." Philip didn't argue, because nothing about this followed anything that was. The ship sat still now. No motion beneath it, no sway, just stillness. Philip moved toward the bridge door. His hand hovered for a second, then he opened it. The corridor beyond wasn't theirs, not anymore. The walls were wrong, narrower, rust spreading across every surface like it had been there for decades, centuries even. The air felt heavy, still, like it hadn't moved in a long time. Martinez followed behind him slowly. "This isn't the ship." Philip stepped forward. Each footstep echoed too far, too deep. The corridor stretched longer than it should have, far longer than the actual dimensions of the vessel. And along the walls, markings, carved, scratched, layered over each other, names, dozens, no, hundreds. Philip stepped closer, running his hand just above the surface without touching it. Each name etched differently, different styles, different depths, but all deliberate, all recorded. Martinez leaned in. "These are ships." Philip nodded slowly. He recognized the format. Vessel names, dates, coordinates, repeated again and again. Then he saw it, near the center of one section. Fresh, compared to the rest. Ardent gale. Philip's throat tightened. "They were here." Martinez stepped back slightly. No, that's not." Philip moved further down the corridor. More names, more dates, more coordinates, all matching different points across the ocean, different years, different routes, but the same pattern. They all ended here. A low sound moved through the structure. Not a foghorn, not machinery. Something deeper, slower. Philip followed it, without speaking, without thinking. The corridor opened suddenly into a wider space, impossible in size, larger than the entire ship itself, the interior of the lighthouse. Except, it didn't look like any lighthouse. The walls curved upward into darkness, far beyond visible height. Rust coated everything, layers of decay built over time that shouldn't exist in any functioning structure. And at the center, the source of the light. Philip stopped. Martinez froze beside him, because it wasn't a lamp, it wasn't mechanical. It moved, slowly, a shifting mass suspended in the center of the chamber, not solid, not fixed. Something within it pulsed faintly, like it was breathing. The light came from inside it, not shining outward, but leaking through it. Philip's voice barely formed. "That's the beacon." Martinez shook his head slowly. "No." The thing shifted again, responding, not randomly, aware. Philip took a step back. And that's when he noticed the walls again, closer to the center now. Not just names, records, entire logs, written, scratched, pressed into the surface, fragments of transmissions, fragments of voices. Holding position, light maintaining distance. We didn't move. Philip's breathing slowed. Because he understood now. The signal, the repetition, the voices. It wasn't predicting anything. It wasn't guiding anything. It was preserving it. Everything that happened here, stayed here, recorded, replayed, added. Martinez whispered, "This place..." Philip finished it quietly. "It's not guiding ships." The thing at the center shifted again, the light pulsing slightly brighter, closer, watching. Philip's eyes moved across the walls one last time, all the names, all the records, all the moments frozen into place, and then he said it. Soft, certain. "It's collecting them. It keeps them." The light pulsed once more, slow, deliberate. Philip didn't step back this time. He just stood there, watching it, understanding it. The movement inside the light shifted again, and for a brief moment, shapes formed within it. Not clear, and not complete, but enough. Silhouettes, figures, standing, frozen in place. Martinez saw it too. "Those are..." Philip cut him off quietly. "I know." The shapes didn't move. They didn't reach out. They didn't react. They were just there, held, preserved, like everything else in this place. The walls around them seemed to hum faintly now, as if responding to the presence at the center. The etched names, the carved logs, the fragments of voices, all of it felt connected, part of the same system. Philip slowly raised the radio in his hand. He hadn't realized he was still holding it. The device crackled softly. Then, without him pressing anything, it began to transmit. His voice, low, steady. "This is Philip Miles, radio operator of the Northstar Meridian." Martinez turned sharply. "You're not..." Philip didn't answer. And because he wasn't speaking. Not anymore. The radio continued. "We have visual on the structure. It is not a lighthouse." The words came out calm, controlled, like a report, like every other voice that had come before. Philip's eyes stayed locked on the light. "It does not guide vessels." The pulsing slowed, matching the rhythm of the voice. "It records them." Martinez stepped back. No, stop it." The radio didn't stop. "All positions lead here." The light brightened slightly. The shapes inside it shifted, just enough to make room. "We did not drift." Philip's grip tightened on the device. "We were brought..." The signal began to distort now, faint static creeping in around the edges. Martinez's voice broke. "Philip, we need to go." But there was nowhere to go. The corridor behind them was gone. Only the chamber remained, and only the light. The radio crackled harder, Philip's voice fading now. "Coordinates confirmed." A pause, then the final line, barely holding together. "We are at the same position." Static swallowed the rest. The transmission cut. The light pulsed once, and then everything disappeared. Days later, the Northstar Meridian was found drifting. No distress call had been received, no collision reported, no storm damage recorded. The ship was intact, engines still functional, navigation systems active, course slightly misaligned but correctable. There were no signs of struggle, no damage, no explanation. The crew was gone. Every personal item remained. Logbooks ended mid-entry. No final message, no recorded emergency. The ocean around it was calm, clear, empty. No fog, no storm, no structure on the horizon, no lighthouse. The search teams documented everything. Photographs, coordinates, equipment status, all consistent, all normal, except for one detail, the radio system. It was still active, still receiving, and buried deep within the signal logs. A transmission, faint, looping, degraded with time, but still there. "This is cargo vessel Northstar Meridian." Static followed, then a final fragment, almost lost. "The light is closer." There was no lighthouse marked on any map, no structure ever recorded in that part of the ocean, and no explanation for what the crew of the Northstar Meridian believed they saw. The official report listed it as an unexplained disappearance. Weather conditions, stable, systems fully operational. No signs of distress, no evidence of evacuation. Just a ship, left behind, empty and drifting. Yet weeks later, another vessel crossed through the same coordinates. Different crew, different route, no connection to the first. Their report was brief, uncertain, but consistent. A light, far ahead of them, fixed, unmoving, flashing at irregular intervals. They attempted to verify its position. There was nothing on record, no installation, no warning marker, no reason for it to be there. They changed course, and the light adjusted with them. The transmission ended shortly after. No further contact was made for several hours. When communication resumed, the crew dismissed it. Equipment error, atmospheric distortion. Nothing confirmed, nothing proven. But one detail remained in the log, a single line, written without explanation. The light appeared closer than it should have been. No follow-up, no investigation, just a note, filed away, unignored, and lost among thousands of routine entries. But the coordinates never changed, and neither did the reports. So if there was never a lighthouse, no structure, no signal station in that ocean, then what was guiding them? Is this not strange?